14th edition and entirely new to the ocean race are the state-of-the-art foiling IMOCAs. These are cutting-edge prototype boats designed for nothing but speed. And there are 5 teams challenging aboard these fierce foiling machines. There is 1 Swiss team and 1 French team, Holcim PRB and Biotherm respectively, along with a European collaboration in Giro Environment Team Europe. And then there's Boris Herrmann's German team Milizia and the American powerhouse 11th Hour Racing Team. In this edition, they will race 32,000 miles around the world to 9 iconic cities, reaching unimaginable speeds. The ocean race is the toughest team sport in the world. This is the race that never stops, day or night. This is the Ocean Race 2022-23.
Well, as you can see, over the 50 years, the race has evolved. Gone are the part-time sailors and the heavy cruising boats. Now, the high-tech IMOCA, a fast foiling boat originally designed for 1 or 2 sailors, but for this edition, fully crewed.
But with any boat, it really comes down to the sailor's skills. Let's take a closer look at the 5 teams. First up, the American powerhouse, 11th Hour Racing Team.
11th Hour Racing Team. Their boat was the first to be launched. They've had over a year in the water. Skippered by Charlie Enright, who has done 3 Volvo Ocean races. The team for leg 1 is Francesca Krapcic, Simon Fisher, aka Sci-Fi, Jack Boutel, and onboard reporter I-Marie Ross. They're well drilled and ready to make a serious claim for the Ocean Race trophy.
We're definitely the favorite. At the same time, we need to stay humble. We've been working for almost, more than 3 years. The race is only 6 months, so we need to stay really focused. It's not just about us as a sailor, it's about the boat. It's about, finish the legs in proper shape and getting the points in the leaderboard. But, all the other teams are competitive. They have new boats. The sailors on board are amazing professionals, and it's not going to be easy. So it's always easy to say someone is the favorite, but then you need to race and show it.
Biotherm Racing are skippered by Paul Mayer, one of the big guns in IMOCA sailing, now competing in his first ocean race. On his crew are Damian Sigouin, Anthony Marchand, Amélie Grassi, and OBR Ming Hao. Biotherm is a brand new team on a brand new boat, but it's fast, very fast.
For this first leg of the ocean race, I chose really experienced sailors. What was important for me to choose the people on the boat, it was the atmosphere, and we are always smiling and joking, so I think it will be great. I'm lucky because we just launched this new boat. We are pretty confident that the boat is able to sail the ocean race. This ocean race will be really close. I think each boat can win the race. We are really happy to participate.
Competing in his first ocean race is the skipper of Team Milizia, the German Sports Personality of the Year, Boris Herrmann. Dutch trailblazer Rosalind Kuiper and British sailor Will Harris are joined by experienced ocean race sailor in their navigator, the Frenchman Nicolas Lunven, and OBR Antoine Oriol. A truly international team and the most unconventional boat design in the fleet.
To finish first we have to finish. That's old wisdom. I really wanted a team that works together long term, and just picking and choosing some rock stars that just come for one leg and then it's another rock star the next leg, that was not so much my idea. Although we have a little bit of that element because we have Nico Lunven and Jan Ilyes who are in them for themselves already a bit of rock stars in offshore sailing. The big question is now, do our new foils do what we ask them to do, and do they fit, etc. So the first victory for us, for our team in particular, with having had particular issues, is making it to the start.
Here's one boat you might have seen before, the proven IMOCA of Giro Environment Team Europe. Their boat has been broken in during many laps around the world. Skippered by Benjamin Dutro and Robert Staniek. Annie Lush, Philip Kozuski and OBR's Charles Drapeau make up the crew. This is the same team that won the Ocean Race Europe 2021.
We are very, very different, so very different culture. I think the difference do the strength. Last time we have sailed together, we have win. I'm very proud of all of this team. And now we are all together. Now we are in a good way to begin the race.
Kevin Escoffier has a strong naval history in offshore sailing and in just 2 attempts won the Ocean Race as a crew member in 2017-18. Now he's back as skipper of Holcim PRB and has just announced a star-studded crew, including Abby Ayler of Great Britain and Sam Goodchild alongside Frenchman Tom Leperche and Julien Champolin, their onboard reporter. Will this team be able to gel in time to get the best out of Kevin's lightning-quick IMOCA entry? Only time will tell.
I love sailing. I love being on the water. Maybe it's also only the only thing I know to do. It's a bit different as a skipper compared to being a crew. It's not the same responsibility. The final choice is due to you. I've been sailing with each of these crew members on the boat, but not everybody at the same time. I think it's a team that is a lot of experience, a lot of talented people, also for a crew with a lot of human values. Since I know this race, it's 6 months racing and not very comfortable boats. I've got the best crew I could have dreamed up with me.
Five IMOCA teams, 4 sailors on each, along with an OBR or onboard reporter bringing us all the action from the water. And each of those teams with some good reasons to feel confident. So to help us navigate as to which one we should be rooting for, let's turn now to Sam Davies, former ocean race skipper and IMOCA sailor. Sam, I mean, it's interesting having the IMOCAs coming in, obviously 11th hour racing team, feeling very confident. They've got a lot of previous ocean race winners. But it's a bit of a new chapter for the race now with these French offshore IMOCA experts coming in.
Yeah, there's 5 IMOCAs here. It's amazing. It's one of my dreams to see the IMOCAs here in the ocean race, so I'm really happy about that. And for sure, 11th hour probably show up as the big favourite because they've been preparing for this race for so long now compared to the other IMOCAs that are here. But yeah, as you say, they don't come from the IMOCA world so much, so maybe they've made that as one of their objectives to get time in the boat to really understand how it works and a bit of a different way of sailing with only 4 crew and not 8.
Well, I think that's the central point because obviously for those people that have come from the IMOCA, I mean, Paul Mayer, big Route de Rhum victory, 2018, I think, we've got Kevin Escoffier, Benjamin Dutroux. They're all big names in the IMOCA circuit, but it's no longer solo. This is with crews on board. I mean, what's it like being jammed into that boat for weeks on end? I mean, tempers have got to fray.
That was something we talked about in the IMOCA class, was how on earth are we going to fit that many people, 5 people in these boats? But in a way it's tough. The IMOCA sailors are not used to sailing with 4 people. It's more 1 or 2. The boats are designed for that. However, it's so exciting to think that you're going to be able to push the boats harder. Because with only 1 person on deck, or not even on deck when we're single-handed, obviously you're not pushing quite as hard as you can when there's 4 people. So there will nearly always be 2 people on deck at all times. It's really exciting to see how hard we're going to push them, see if we can fit that many people inside the boat without it being uncomfortable or difficult people-wise. But I'm really excited about sending it with these boats and seeing what they can handle with a crew on board at such a high-level race.
High-level racing, lots of crew on board. Of course, that also means a lot of kit as well. And I'm sure as the race goes on around the world, we're going to be looking at all of that, all the equipment. I mean, food, water, not even before you get onto things like clothing, if indeed you're allowed any for the light wind legs. There's a lot of equipment that needs to fit on board these IMOCAs with these 5 teams, because today is just the import race. The import race, the first chance to score any kind of points. That goes into the import trophy. But of course, this race, it doesn't stay here in Alicante. This goes round the world. This is going to be an enormous competition, taking in 7 locations all the way around the planet. The conditions today, I mean, we've been watching this. It's been a little bit tricky, but it is going to see a lot of twists and turns as we work our way round the globe over the next 6 months, all the way to that grand finale in Geneva. If you haven't seen the course, this is what the 32,000-mile racetrack looks like.
The race is divided into 7 legs. It starts with a sprint from Alicante, Spain to Cabo Verde. From there, it's down to the southern tip of Africa, to Cape Town, which has been a regular host of the race. Next up is a record-breaking leg, the longest racing distance in the 50-year history of the race. 12,750 nautical miles, a 1-month marathon through the Southern Ocean from Cape Town to Itajaí, Brazil. This leg is worth double points, so it's crucial for teams to get it right. After the stop in Brazil, the boats head north across the equator and up to Newport on the east coast of the United States. The boats return to Europe on another double points leg with a transatlantic crossing to Aarhus, Denmark, followed by a flyby in Kiel, Germany, en route to The Hague in the Netherlands, and finally into the Mediterranean with the grand finale, this offshore leg to Geneva, Italy.
Well, that's the course around the world, but the important question is how do you win? Well, it's all about amassing the points. A high point scoring system. You get 5 points if you win the leg, 4 if second, and then working their way down the fleet. A little twist in the tail with double points awarded for legs 3 and 5, the big Southern Ocean dash and the transatlantic as well. And of course, the racing today for the import going into the import trophy. And that league is going to be used to split any tie breaks that we might see in the overall scoreboard. With 6 months of racing, plenty of legs, there's going to be an awful lot of chances for ties to emerge as those points going. So we are on the water today for that first race, and the points are going to be very interesting to see.
Why sail through water when you can fly above it? The IMOCA, a cutting-edge speed machine, is built around carbon fibre hydrofoils. These foils work in the water like airplane wings work in the air. They create lift, moving the hull of the boat out of the water, giving them a dramatic reduction in drag and a huge jump in speed. Speed records set in previous years are guaranteed to be broken in the Ocean Race 2022-23.
Well, there's the technology that we're all so excited about. Plenty of challenges in using them, but also plenty of opportunities to go fast as well. The hydrofoil's a big feature of the IMOCAs that we're going to see out in the water today. So to help us make sense of that new technology, Natasha caught up with Sam Davies earlier.
Hi, Sam. You skippered a boat back in the 2014 edition. You're a very experienced IMOCA sailor with a foiling boat of your own. How now they're fully crewed? I mean, you're used to sailing it single or double-handed. Is this a massive change for these skippers?
It's a really exciting change to see the IMOCAs here on the Ocean Race, something I dreamt of for years, so I'm really happy. And for sure, it's a big change for the IMOCAs to be sailing fully crewed, albeit it's a small crew, only 4 people, but that does make a difference. But I think it's a positive difference because it means that these boats are going to be able to push even harder, because there'll always be 1 or 2 people on deck with the sheets in the hand trimming. That's going to make a difference, and it's going to be really interesting to see just how fast they can go.
But how hard should they push? I mean, the foils, they look fragile. They probably aren't. But are they going to make it around the world?
The foils do look fragile, but believe me, they are designed to lift the weight of the boat. They can take pretty much 10 tons on them. So they look fragile because they're so thin. But these foils, that's what they do, is they power up the boats even more, which puts load on everything else in the boat and the rig, the mast and the rigging. So what these sailors will have to do is watch that, listen to the alarms. It's very technical, sailing the IMOCA, and you can push too hard and you can break things. But you have to be close to that fine line, and that's what we're going to see them doing, and it's really exciting.
And what about visibility? I mean, they're used to sailing on the VO65s, you know, open cockpits. The new IMOCAs, very close cockpits. How are they going to do today in the inshore race?
Well, the closed cockpits are great for offshore because you're really protected, and it's compulsory now with these boats. But for sure, in the inshore race, that's going to make it harder for the crews. There are more or less boats have more or less visibility. You will see them wearing the headsets to have comms with the bowman, but that's going to be a big challenge for them today.
Well, we're excited to see them. I hope we can see them fly and conditions are good.
Me too.
Natasha talking to Sam Davies, and of course that foiling technology, very exciting. But right now it is all about what's going to happen out on the water for that first import race just in a few moments' time here in Alicante. Well, earlier on today, we saw an awful lot of action out on the water with the VO65s. The VO65s out there with the light winds right now, but we did get some pretty good starting out in the water with 6 teams getting out there. The start line was pretty congested. It was really the Austrian Ocean Racing powered by Team Geneva. It was the only boat that didn't get a good clear bite of the line. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team looks set to do well, but the surprise challenger from the leeward position off that line was Wind Whisperer Racing Team. They managed to hold on and push really clear. That first mark, it was very congested coming through. Wind Whisperer Racing Team having to fend off multiple attacks from the Portuguese boat of Merpuri Foundation Racing Team. Merpuri Foundation Racing Team trying to find some ways through, not only on that top leg, but also on the way down as well. Wind Whisperer Racing Team having to push back harder and harder. But as the race evolved, it looked like the Polish team were managing to find a little bit of pace. The crew work, the tactical decisions, everything staying very calm on board and keeping the Portuguese at bay. However, the course did start to stretch. The winds went a little bit light, and in fact, Merpuri Racing Team had to start getting more worried about holding back Team Yayo in third, less about keeping Wind Whisperer Racing Team in their sights. The race just going the way of the Polish team. Certainly the first lap being a tour de force before the winds started to get a little bit light later on in the days. The crews desperately looking around to try and see any patches of wind that they could find, trying to find a little bit of chance to get the boats moving. And as the winds got lighter, the crews up the top of the mast to try and kick the battens through and try and spot any patches of wind. And then a little bit of disaster as Wind Whisperer Racing Team managed to cross the line in the dying breeze. They managed to find a little bit of speed, claiming the top 6 points. But it was Merpuri Foundation Racing Team and Team Yayo in second and third that were leading the pack that unfortunately did not get to share the celebrations of Wind Whisperer Racing Team. Top points for the Polish team. They will be happy with their performance. But for everybody else, unable to cross the finish line as the breeze died behind them. They struggled and they fought valiantly on, but unfortunately, the wind here in Alicante shutting off just at the wrong time for these teams trying to chase down the Polish. So 6 points for the race leaders, and unfortunately for the others, a little bit of frustration in that first import race. Well, a few moments to go before racing gets underway for our 5 IMOCA teams. They've already made their way out on the water and left the safety of the harbour. But while they were docking out, Natasha was down there to talk to the skippers and get their thoughts on the racing today.
So you were the only boat to go out yesterday to do the test of the import race. Does this prove how ready your team is?
Well, it proves that we want to sail, we want to be on the water, and we want to be well prepared. So I hope it will be a good sign for today. Anyway, we are looking forward to race, to see where we are in terms of performance. So really looking forward to go on the water today.
So only 4 days ago, you were putting new foils on your boat. How lucky were you to find them?
Very lucky, yeah, and then lucky to have such a good team that managed to fit them into the boat.
And are you feeling just as lucky to win this import race today?
I think there's some superstition around winning import races, so we will see what happens out there.
Well, tell us about that superstition.
Yeah, I think people don't want to win the import race. That's very important.
Your team's focus is on winning. How important is a win today for team morale?
Actually today, the most important thing isn't winning. Obviously we've got a little bit of a change in our lineup today because Charlie's not here. But we're also very fortunate we've got plenty of depth in our team and we'll be able to go race well without him. But really our goals for today is to have a nice clean race, get around on the marks nicely, sail like no we can, low stress and yeah, just ease our way in gently. You can't win it today, but you could certainly do something that could lose your event. And so yeah, we're just out there to have a good race, nice trip around the race course, and if we sail well, then the result tends to take care of itself. So.
It is a testament that your team has what it takes to win this race.
No, actually I think we are not in this position. No, the idea is not all is not ready on the boat, so we will just take the start with the other guy and we'll see what happens.
Has your win of the Europe race last year given you confidence to know that you could win this today?
Yeah, for sure. The last remember I have on the ocean race, it was a winning race in a light condition like we have now. So yeah, for sure. But no, we are in different boats with a big foil, so we have all to learn now. And yeah, we just are happy to be here, and for sure we will do the best.
Well, take care and good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Well, everybody excited to get the racing underway. All of our teams now on the water. The only question remains, what is the course for the day? What is going to be the challenge out there? Well, let's take a closer look at how this import course is laid out. We are just off the city shoreline and it is a 2-lap import course where our 5 IMOCA teams, they will be fighting for the perfect spot on that reaching start line in the hopes to gain the best breeze and claim an early lead. We're going to have 4 marks to go around with long reaching legs across the wind, and it's going to be a drag race for the sailors, hoping not only to cross the finish line first but also hopefully able to boost the top speed of the day and start this competition with confidence. Well, it is going to be a tight course. It is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So, Sam, you know the IMOCA well. I mean, if there was a boat that was designed purely for offshore and not for close quarters racing, it would be the IMOCA.
Exactly, that was definitely designed without inshore racing in mind. They've been optimised for offshore, long legs, and the manoeuvres aren't really important when we sail around the world, single-handed. So the teams are going to have to do their best. Some of the boats don't even have a very good vision from the cockpit, so they're going to be on the, probably we'll see them with headsets doing the comms if the bowman has work to do and manoeuvres to pull off. It's going to be really tricky, and there's only 4 of them, one of which is on the helm. So that means only 3 people left to winch, grind and do all the manoeuvres.
And I know there's going to be a little bit of a question as to how hard they're going to push it.
I think there's probably quite a few people who've said, okay, be careful, this is just the import race. For sure, just is not the right word because it can break a tie break and make a difference to the overall result. But I'm sure that on the game plan, it's be careful, don't crash, don't break the boat. But once those 5 skippers get out on the start line, they'll have forgotten all that and it's going to be till death.
Well, it certainly is going to be exciting, and it's been a very long wait as well. 5 years since the last edition, but now our 5 IMOCAs are going to be on the water. It looks set to be a fantastic competition in this first import race.
17 yachts from 7 nations are setting out on the world's longest ocean race. 7 months and 27,000 miles of hard sailing. With spinnakers now set, the fleets gradually separate. An unforgettable and unique adventure.
Welcome to Alicante, Spain. It's the first day of racing, the start of the Round the World Sailing Marathon. And it begins here. I'm Niall Best, and we are here to bring you the very first import race. A quick 45-minute dash in front of Alicante City, the first of 7 stopover locations. Alicante has been home to the race since 2011, and it's hosted the teams while their final preparations have been underway. Now, that's behind them, and racing can begin. Today is the first time our teams will take to the water, their first chance to edge ahead on the scoreboard. So are the conditions playing ball? Well, we've seen the wind being pretty fickle at the moment. The last weather report was 9 miles per hour from the southwest, but we're going to have to wait to see what is happening out on the racetrack. One thing's for sure, our sailors already out there scouting for the best breeze, and they are going to be trying to gain any advantage they can in the breeze that offers some lulls, but also a little bit of increased speed. So let's take a look at what the course is going to be today. We are tucked against the shoreline of Alicante in full view of the city, and the course will put the emphasis today firmly on speed. It's a drag race, and it will be straight off the line. The wind blows down the start, meaning our teams will reach onto leg 1 after fighting for the best position. And then it's a 5-leg course, port hand or left turns around each of the 4 marks, with only a short upwind section before reaching to the finish and claiming 5 points for the winner of this 2-lap course. It's been a 5-year journey since the last edition ended, and now for our 5 IMOCA teams, they look set to begin this 14th edition of the Ocean Race with a tight, sharp import race, and the IMOCAs are certainly going to find this pretty challenging. So let's bring in an expert here. Let me bring in Sam Davis, former Ocean Race skipper, round the world IMOCA sailor. And Sam, it's a short race today, but this is the start of a very long journey.
Exactly. It's a short race, but it could potentially count for an overall ocean race win, potentially, because the results of this series will break any tie-break at the end of the whole race around the world. And the IMOCAs aren't used to sailing short races, so it's going to be tricky for these crews sailing in these boats.
Well, our 5 IMOCA teams are getting ready, so let's get to know them a little bit better. Let's take a closer look at the teams. First up from our 5 IMOCA teams, we have Team Militia and Boris Herman. Well, the crew boasting a very technical skill set, not least from navigator Nico Lundven, already a proven winner in offshore sailing, and of course, plenty of talent all around that crew roster. 11th Hour Racing Team, they are headed up by Charlie Enright. This is his third ocean race, and while he's still trying to win it, most of his crew already have. No wonder that this team is considered the early favourites. Paul Mayer is skipper of Biotherm, and he's got plenty of IMOCA talent with him, not least from Frenchman Damien Seguin, a 3-time Paralympic champion and an IMOCA expert. This team could be an explosive combination. The French-German entry Guyot Environment Team Europe, co-skippered by Benjamin Detreux and Robert Stanjek. They were considered the underdog last year, but their recent performances means that this team is now up there with the rest. Lastly, Team Holston PRB, Kevin Escoffier as skipper means that the boat is already going to be fast, but just to make sure, he's packed out his crew list with past ocean race winners and offshore legends to prove this team's worth. Five IMOCA teams, and this is the challenge for them today.
4, 3, 1, now.
And there is the countdown, the 5-minute mark. So, Sam, 5 minutes to go. We'll get those warning signals at 5, 4, 1 and go. And this is the race control boat, the red hull with the white superstructure. And then that start, so important, that start flag, that is where that invisible line is drawn from all the way to the other end of the line. It is a short course. Small distances are going to matter. They're going to have to push this line quite hard.
Definitely, because it's a reaching start. So all the boats are heading off full speed when we start reaching. It's pretty much the maximum speed that these IMOCAs can do in a straight line. So there's not really going to be any passing lanes in this first leg if you don't get a good start. Obviously, anyone to leeward who's slightly behind the start could potentially get rolled over really quickly. So the start in this race is really, really important. Probably more important than a windward leeward or a standard coastal race that we'd see.
Well, that's a good view there of what the start line is going to look like. We have got the yellow and white mark in the top left-hand corner, just next to the blue of Biotherm. That's the other end of the start line. So 5 IMOCA teams looking set to cross that line. And Sam, let's get to the big thing today. Let's talk about the conditions, because, of course, what we all want to see here is we want to see these IMOCAs flying. Are we going to get lucky?
I think it's close right now. I was talking to Paul. We can see Biotherm here, Paul Mayer, the skipper. He was saying to me that if there's over 12 knots of breeze, then they'll be on their J2, which is the smaller head sail. We can see they've got their J0 up, so obviously there's not more than 12 knots right now. They're looking like they're going to be sailing with their J0s. I think there's potential with what we can see in the forecast, but I'm not sure if we'll get a flying start like we're hoping for.
I understand that you're trying to let us down gently. I'm going to remain hopeful because, interestingly, just as you were talking there, a little bit of information came from the race control team just outlining that first reach is going to be a 1 nautical mile reach, and there is a magic number in terms of the angle between the wind direction and your course. The best possible power and speed. I mean, 100 degrees, that's what I keep hearing around the boat park.
Yeah, I think the fastest angle for these boats, especially with the J0 up, is probably 105 true wind angle. So if the race committee can be kind enough to find that angle for this first leg, I think all the skippers will be really happy. It doesn't take much to get these boats flying. They're really light, especially the latest generation of boats, and the foils start working at lower boat speeds than previously, so we can see them taking off a bit earlier than we have done in the last few years. And it's interesting to see. I think there's some, I can see Giro and Holcim PRB, they haven't got J3s up. They've got a cable in the place of their J3. We have to have a cable to hold the rig up, and so they're really minimising air drag.
A little bit of a treat now going on board with 11th Hour Racing Team. Justine Matreau having to work hard, dancing around the cockpit, clearing the ropes. Now on board with Team Militia, Rosalind Kuiper and Will Harris on the pedestal. There's not a lot of room down below on these boats, and there's an awful lot to do around a tight course.
It's really close. It's really tight in the cockpit. You can see they've even got one of their guests. We can see the onboard reporter and one of their guests on board with them, who's tucked away in the cockpit too.
35.
Final approach into the start line here for the 5 IMOCA teams, and right now there is a battle going on between Biotherm and Team Militia. Team Militia being the windward boat, having to keep clear and putting the bow up, and with 15 seconds to go, Biotherm looks set to actually push Team Militia out. In fact, Team Militia keeping themselves up here. The German team, knowing that the rules are not on their side, they're going to have to go in behind, so it looks set to be a great start here for Paul Meyer and Biotherm. The French team coming off really well. 11th Hour Racing Team off the middle of the line to leeward. Guyot Environment Team Europe getting the next best start in 4th place down at the pin, and then Team Holcim PRB at the moment chasing in 5th.
It's interesting to see the choice of sails here, and the 2 best starts, Biotherm and 11th Hour, with completely different sail choices. 11th Hour, they're on their J2, obviously judging that there's too much wind for the J0. In the IMOCAs, if you have too much sail area, it can really slow you down. The drag of the extra sail area prevents you from taking off, and actually we can see that 11th Hour, they're just burning it up. They're burning off now, and they've obviously, that sail choice right now, it seems to be better.
It's pretty low. It's pretty low.
On board with Team Militia, and it gives you an idea as to what it's going to be like for these crews. Packed inside the cockpit, the canopy going right the way over the head. It's difficult on a day like today when all you want to do is get your head into the breeze, but in the Southern Ocean I'm sure it's going to be quite nice. But the big thing now is the speeds. Navigator Simon Fisher just calling in that distance to the mark, and the speeds are there. We have got 21 knots on Biotherm right now with Team Holcim PRB, 18.5 knots. They are trying to get over to the windward side of Guyot Environment Team Europe, who are holding them off for the moment. These 2 teams are trying to come in on the leeward side. Out of shot at the moment, ahead and slightly to windward is the rest of the pack. If Team Holcim PRB and Guyot Environment Team Europe can keep the speed through there, they're going to have the inside round. There you can see it was Biotherm that had the best start, but they're stuck to windward on this left-hand turn.
And you can see Biotherm, they're doing a bit of a wheelie, as we say it. Just a great image from onboard Guyot. You can see Biotherm taking off and flying there. So lucky, it's great. We found some breeze, and the IMOCAs are showing us what they can do.
Plenty of speed out on the race course, and if these teams had a little bit of space, it is evaporating now because they are getting squeezed into this mark here, Mark 1, the first turning mark. It's going to be a left-hand turn and then onto a very short downwind leg. And Biotherm had the lead. 11th Hour Racing Team now, with that different head sail choice, has found their way through, and they found their way through with ease. They are going to be the boat that rounds without having to avoid anybody else and being able to pick that line. A big ease on the head sail to get themselves around. But the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th is between Biotherm, Team Holcim PRB and Guyot Environment Team Europe. Now we've got Biotherm putting the bow down. Team Holcim PRB trying to find the right line to get the bow up and going. We were worried that we weren't going to have the breeze to get the best out of these IMOCAs, but the sailors have found it, and potentially we could see some real flying action.
It's so close. It's so close.
On board with Guyot Environment Team Europe for the rounding. Noises you can hear now, the stresses of the boat. That's the winches holding on to the loads in those sheets. Maybe 4 tons of load being eased through those winches. I mean, that noise must get you in the middle of the night offshore.
It gets you, yeah, it wakes everyone. Well, you get used to it after a while, but you just can't bear away with these boats. If the sails are too trimmed on, you can't bear away, and then it becomes dangerous. And actually, if your sails are too trimmed on, the boat doesn't accelerate, so it's really dangerous for boat speed to be over trimmed, and you've got to be watching that and easing. And as you can hear the noise, it's so loaded up, and it can be dangerous if you're not used to handling that amount of load on those winches. It's a dangerous operation trimming these sails.
Well, we knew that this race was going to be a short dash, and we are coming up to the first real manoeuvre here with 11th Hour Racing Team leading the field, Biotherm in second, looking set to attack after this jibe, and then Team Holcim PRB just behind in third place. The American team with Charlie Enright skippering, doing very nicely at the moment, leading, but that crucial jibe halfway down this short run in just a few moments away might dictate exactly how much of this lead they're going to be able to hold on to coming into the bottom of the course. It does look a little bit lighter as they bear away, but ultimately that is all because they've had to steer away from that magic 100 degrees as we go back on board with Guyot Environment Team Europe.
They make it look easy, and we can't really see from here because we haven't got a view in the cockpit, but basically in this short downwind step, they've got to trim the sails, but also they're going to prepare the jibe, and we mustn't forget they've also got to get the new foil out, the windward foil out, so that when they jibe they've got the foil on board. And these boats only have 4 winches, 1 pedestal, and only 3 people on the handle, so it's really, really tough job to get all that done.
And it's gone well for them. I mean, look at that jibe. Look at what they have been able to do here. This is an incredible import race unfolding here on Alicante as Guyot Environment Team Europe makes a power move on the inside and potentially pushes forward.
And we can see they've all got there.
A Biotherm now at the moment on the windward hip of 11th Hour Racing. 11th Hour Racing Team, the Americans, pushing too far before this jibe. They have let the rest of the field on the inside. 11th Hour Racing Team were in first place, but now it's Holcim PRB. They are the ones that we can see. We are looking off the boat of Guyot Environment Team Europe, who've moved up into second place. So 1 jibe. We knew that these manoeuvres were going to be critical. It just come down to the Americans dragging everybody over that ley line.
And could it be also down to the fact that yesterday was a practice race and the only boat that went out practicing was Holcim PRB, and surprise, surprise, after the manoeuvres, they're the ones that have come out in the lead. Maybe that practice pays off.
And I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussions on board about exactly how to pull off these manoeuvres that you would never normally do in an IMOCA, but they count because the points today are going to be crucial when we get all the way around the world, and those ties have to be broken. So right now, Team Holcim PRB are leading at the bottom of that short run, about to go on to that high-powered reach. And Guyot Environment Team Europe that started that downwind leg in 5th place, now up into second. Biotherm in third. They are going to be hoping for a good exit from this last turn so they can get some clear air. But what an incredible downwind leg at the moment. The foils for Team Holcim PRB just starting to dig into the water, and they are going to be crucial for this high-powered reach as the boat starts coming up. Is this going to be a chance to get these IMOCAs flying? On board Team Holcim PRB. Let's get a little bit of a taste of the atmosphere.
a bit difficult for the onboard reporters here. He's stuck outside the cockpit. So, but I can imagine they're still grinding inside. Finally, setting up the trim for this reaching leg. We can see that they've still got their windward foils out, but the boats are heeling enough so the foil is not dragging the water. So they've made that choice to not waste energy moving a foil up or down. And yeah, we can start to see the bow of Holcim lifting out the water in the top of the keel coming. So that's a really great point of sail. They're not flying too high. They're just optimizing the position of the boat just above the surface of the water.
An absolutely superb decision here by Holcim BRB, and it was something that I think that was kind of going about the boat park, is what exactly you do to try and limit the amount of work, the amount of ropes that you have to pull. And so far for Team Holcim PRB, keeping those foils out, picking the right jibe, it's put them into first place. Second place, Giro Environment Team Europe. It's certainly so far turning out to be a race with a lot of place changes as 11th Hour Racing Team round in 5th place, a leg that they started in first. And we are on the high-powered reaching leg, this time at the bottom of the course, with 11th Hour Racing Team starting this leg in the unfamiliar position of 5th. They pulled off the line so nicely, and they came out so strong from the line, but on this leg, they're going to have to play catch-up. The team that really outdid them was Team Holcim PRB. As we look now, Sam Goodjarl just on that windward side. You can see those headsets, Sam. I mean, how noisy does it get on board?
It's noisy on board, but the other reason is that the cockpit's closed, so it's difficult for the comms between the guys at the pit or on the trim, and I think the guy who worked with Kevin, who's driving here, so they need those comms. If Kevin needs an ease, he can't stick his head in the cockpit and ask for the ease, so that's all on the headsets.
And interesting, just as we go on board and pan around, I mean, he's sitting out. I mean, in normal parlance, you'd call it a window. I mean, it's not really an easy door and a ladder and a couple of steps to use, is it?
No, I don't think it's the best of setups for the inshore racing. And I think, I've spoken to the guys who've got this kind of boat, who feel really isolated when they're helming. And they do need knees or a bit of trim on. The comms are really difficult. And I think Sam Goodjarl's doing a good job of jumping in and jumping out, relaying all the information from on deck and down below. And it's the same, I think, Abby in the cockpit's being probably feeling a bit isolated as well, not being able to feel the breeze on her cheeks and see what's going on the race course.
The windward foil of Team Holcim PRB just now, as the breeze gets a little bit lighter, dipping into the water. They could retract it, but they've decided to keep things easier on board. We've seen it with a couple of the other boats. Now we go on board with 11th Hour Racing Team, the team that is having to push quite hard. I mean, obviously, skipper Charlie Enright was a last-minute piece of news this morning. He's not on board. He tested positive for COVID this week and sadly hasn't yet got a negative result. He's feeling fine. But to play it safe, he's not sailing today. Instead, Justin Matrew, the first reserve, coming on board, and Simon Fisher being there as skipper. As we go on board now with second place Giro Environment Team Europe and Robert Stanjek on the helm.
They've got a little bit easier comms there, so obviously Robert can talk directly to the guys and girls in the cockpit. So probably a little bit easier for him than for Kevin. And yeah, we can see as well that they've chosen that option of keeping the windward foil out and keeping things simple to just sail neatly around the race course.
And this boat here, I mean, interesting. This boat obviously much older than some of the other IMOCAs that we're seeing. It's a fast boat, it's not slow at all, but that difference in cockpit design, as you say, Robert Stanjek on that boat, easier just to sort of dip in and talk to everybody, but those cockpits have become bigger, wider, far more kind of controlling and overlapping. But now let's go to the front here, because Team Holcim PRB now finishing off that long reach at the bottom, and you can see both of those foils deployed and in the water, and that's the penalty for keeping them in that ready to go position.
Yeah, I think the whole fleet have decided that's the option. I think everyone's got their windward foil out, and Holcim PRB furling up their masthead to go upwind on the J2 for this short upwind leg, which means that the breeze must be nicely above 12 knots for them to use the J2, and I guess taking a little bit of the example at 11 hour. Sailed so well that first leg on their J2.
So the foils right now for Team Holcim PRB, and in fact for all of our 5 IMOCAs, not really doing what you want them to do. Certainly for this upwind leg, not quite having the power to really exploit the lift that we could get out of them, but as Sam was saying, ready to be deployed. Now, what's going to happen here as we go into this upwind leg? It's certainly, so far, played out the way for Team Holcim PRB. They are round, clean, and heading upwind. Guyot Environment Team Europe coming round in second place, but with over 160 metres to make up on this beat. And behind them, well, they're starting to feel the pressure from Biotherm in third, and then Team Milizia fourth, and 11th Hour Racing in fifth as we go on board. And there you can see the tension for the skipper.
Yeah, I think he might have just popped the autopilot on to go in and help out in the cockpit, maybe, as he's disappeared from view. And Team Guyot Biotherm choosing to stay on the masthead 0, so they're limiting their manoeuvres, and obviously they reckon they can carry that sail upwind without being too overpowered.
All the foils deployed, ready to go, but at this point, just as we turn the boats around Mark III, the foils dragging in the water. It's speed that these hydrofoils need to kick into a gear, and right now they are just going slowly round.
Actually, the foils, they're probably not dragging too much, because when you're sailing above 10 knots boat speed, the foils do actually create lift, and they also create I'm going to say in French, I've spent too much time in France, they are replacing the dagger boards, albeit not as efficiently as the dagger boards. So when you're going upwind, your foil is giving you a little bit of lift, not enough to lift the bow out of the water, and also acting to stop the boat slipping sideways when you're going upwind.
11th Hour Racing team now going round the mark, and well, perhaps feeling the lack of their normal skipper Charlie Enright as we go on board now, and navigator Simon Fisher. I mean, there's no easy positions on this boat. You've got to get involved.
Yeah, with only 4 crew, everybody has to grind, and Sci-Fi and Juju they're doing the hard work in the cockpit today, and you can judge by their faces that they're giving it everything they can. And with Jack and Francesca, I'm not sure if they're missing Charlie. I think they're an amazing team, and whoever out of those 5 are on board, they are going to do an amazing performance. And I think anyone can make that. Well, the late Jibe, or maybe it was PRB, who did an amazing manoeuvre at that top mark, and I'm pretty sure that the 11th hour are going to catch back up, and if Charlie's not there, it's not really a problem.
Well, I think that there's a penalty for being in first place and having to make that decision, and right now that is the position of Team Holcim PRB, because they have a decision to make, which is not when to jibe, this time when to tack. And at the moment, in terms of distance, well, Team Holcim PRB had 100 metres, but it's ticking down. It's wavering around about 90 metres, with Guyot Environment Team Europe just behind and inside.
But when PRB make their tack, they've chosen to sail with a J2. Their tack is going to be a really quick manoeuvre. Guyot behind them have got to tack their massive masthead 0, and obviously that will penalise them a little bit.
So we are heading up now to Mark IV. We have a turn to go. The breeze coming in from the right-hand side of your picture and then sweeping across towards the boats. So the team's unable to point straight at Mark IV. They need to do a tack or a turn across the breeze, sailing onto the other side. And all these angles will be sweated over by the sailors. But Sam, I mean, you were just talking about that J2 and whether that was making a difference. But there's a real drop in performance here for Team Holcim PRB.
It looks to me like the breeze is dropping off here, and yeah, they're struggling with that J2, and the We can't see any more of those little white horses we had earlier. Is this going to be a shutdown?
I mean, a big rotation here in the breeze, as you're saying. It's a shutdown, it's a shift as well. And in fact, it's Team Milizia that's been lifted on that inside. They are now pointing closest towards that mark. And they've gained hugely, not by sailing faster, but just a better angle, less distance to travel. And suddenly, they're looking pretty good on the inside. And I'm having flashbacks here because this is what we saw on the race course an hour ago for the VO65s. So there's no excuse here for the IMOCAs. We knew that the breeze was going to be fickle, but one thing's for sure, right now, Team Holcim PRB no longer the boat in first place. That prize goes to Guyot Environment Team Europe.
Yeah, we can see there's a left-hand shift, and obviously the boats behind have been lifted with that, and now they are on the left, and so they're getting a double advantage from that wind shift.
And Team Holcim PRB, I mean, they have lost the opportunity to dictate that tack as well.
Yeah, they're a little bit trapped right now.
There we can see Team Milizia breezing their sails. It's definitely shifted down the gears here. We saw 20 knots with these boats flying at times. Certainly the bows just lifting up on that top reach. Now as we're going upwind, it's Team Milizia just keeping their boat moving a little over 5 knots of boat speed. We go on board at the moment with Team Milizia.
Yeah, there's very little heel now, so just showing how light the wind is. And you can see Rosalind setting up the sheets on the windward side, which is going to be the new leeward side after the tack. So she's busy getting the trim right on for the J0.
Well, that's a view that I don't think that the sailors can see, but we get to enjoy it. That's the view round the front for the team further back in the boat. I think that view is going to be blocked as we go back on board now with 11th Hour Racing Team. At the moment, trying to make some distance up on this upwind leg.
Still grinding. They've ground their way around the racecourse. I think they will deserve their pasta tonight.
It doesn't matter what the breeze does. The IMOCA demands the very best from you at all times.
I'd say they're probably bringing their foil up. You know, what we were saying, the windward foil was out. That's going to create a lot of drag. Now the boat's going slower, so maybe they've chosen that option to bring that windward foil in.
Well, when we started this upwind leg, it was Team Holcim PRB that was in the lead. Then Guyot Environment Team Europe looked good. But look at this Team Milizia. The mark that you can see at the bottom of your picture with the white cube on top, that is where they are heading. And in a few moments, we expect these teams to tack. But as that breeze has shifted, Team Milizia were in the best position to get rotated into first place. And just as Guyot Environment Team Europe blocked the tack from Team Holcim PRB, now it's Team Milizia blocking them as we go back on board with the German team, Team Milizia, skipper Boris Herrmann, and now they get to decide this tack.
And the question is there going to be a change of course? Because this wind shift is going to make this next leg, which was a reaching leg, now pretty much an upwind leg. If I'm reading the race course right, it's difficult from the commentary box.
I think you're sailor eye. I think you're exactly right. I think you're completely there. And, well, I mean, the race management team know what they're doing, so I'm sure if you're thinking about it, they're thinking about it too. But right now, the only question for this team, as we just poke inside, and I think that's Boris Herrmann down there, and as we cut to the helicopter, you can see how strong their position is. Team Milizia, that bottom right-hand boat, with that big bow carrying all that pressure. But look at this, we're seeing boats parking up here.
Well, I think that's Holcim PRB who've just got stuck in irons in their tack. They were stuck head to wind. Tacking these boats is really hard to get the boat through the wind without it stopping. And if you deploy your masthead zero just too early, you can end up completely stopping the boat.
If there was any doubt as to how hard it was just simply to tack one of these boats, this is what is involved with simply furling a sail away, pulling it out and getting the foils working on the new tack. A lot of ropes and a lot of handles to grind. Interesting there, Sam, to see even Boris Herrmann there grinding as well. I mean, you know, some people would just say, hey, I'm the skipper, I'm going to take the easy route, I'm going to be on the tiller.
I think he's got Nico Lundven probably driving right now, who's an amazing sailor as well, and I was lucky enough to race double-handed with him a couple of years ago. He's got a great feeling for the boat, so Boris has made the right choice there.
A helicopter shot from overhead of Team Militia skipper Boris Herman a moment ago was actually down below working the pumps, grinding the boat hard. But instead, now we see Nico Lundven on the tiller. As we go back to that geography shot, you can see it was Team Holcim PRB. This race was going so their way. And unfortunately for them, I mean, Sam, you saw it. They went for that tack and they just have not been able to get their boat speed back.
No, that's a really hard manoeuvre to do, and when it doesn't work, you lose so much. And looking at the boat speed, they haven't managed to get going yet. They're still only at 1.5 knots. So I think that there's going to be some big frustrations on board that boat.
Especially as they played the early stages of that race so nicely. But, I mean, we've got another race leader here with Team Militia. But as I say that, actually, just coming into view here from the bottom right-hand side of the screen is the next turning mark, that white cube on the yellow raft. And look at the boat closest. 11th Hour Racing Team, the boat that led at Mark 1 and then let the entire fleet pass on that downwind leg. They look set to retake the lead. A good performance here from the Americans and 11th Hour Racing Team. Simon Fisher, the standby skipper, as we go on board here, as they are set to claim first place at this turning mark.
See the next mark, sir? Perfect, okay.
The action on board. If you were in any doubt as to how hard it was just simply to get one of these boats moving, I think the expression on Justin Petru's face there, they are working hard and it's working for them. They've done well.
I think what's really difficult in these boats is, I think for Justine, Juju and Sci-Fi they're inside the boat. They really, obviously there are windows where you can see out, but you are really isolated from the racecourse. And for someone who's used to seeing everywhere whilst you're manoeuvring and have that wind on your face and be able to see the sails, the course and the other boats, they can't see any of that. So the comms are so important. And you can hear all they were talking about was timings to the next mark, what the next manoeuvre is, and trying to keep everybody in the loop of what's going on, because they're pretty much sailing blind.
I mean, it's interesting when we watch it, we think that they've got time to breeze, you know, they just keep going straight. It's all right. There is no time down below, and for 11th Hour Racing Team, as you can see on the right hand side of your picture right now, yes, they rounded in first place, but they are in a battle at the moment for first place with Team Militia just to windward. These two boats, they have been pretty much every position in the pack here, but we are about to conclude lap 1, and so far it's certainly been an incredible contest here on the waters for Alicante. Eleventh Hour Racing Team to the right hand side of picture, to leeward of Team Militia, and this should be the high powered reaching leg, and they're certainly doing some good speeds. I mean, we're seeing 9-10 knots at times, but the angle with that wind shift not quite right for foiling now. Team Militia, I mean, they've got to be in a stronger position.
Yeah, it looks like they've got the roll there, and they've managed to put the helm down a little bit and roll over 11th Hour, so they're in a strong position right now, and they've still got some distance till the next mark to get completely past.
You could write a long essay on the differences in headroom with each of these boats right now, and just being able to see Will Harris, Rosalind Kai, but Boris Herman, who's a big guy, being able to stand up. I mean, the relief that must do to your back after working on those pumps is not like that on Team Holcim PRB or even 11th Hour Racing Team. But at the moment, the only thing that's making a difference is the positioning and the breeze. It is hitting Team Militia first. and 11th Hour Racing Team are only getting the leftovers. So we have now concluded lap 1, second lap to go, and we are about halfway down this top reach, back to that first mark for the second time. And Team Malizia right now, there's still some movement with those crews, still some adjustment. It looks like the breeze is kind of, it could go either way. We might need that sail, we might need to sail it differently.
I think it looks easy from here, but basically everything's happening so quickly that they're probably still working on the setup to get the boat going as fast as possible, and there's still things they can do to make the trim better and set that boat up perfectly for this wind angle and this leg. And obviously they're going to be looking ahead, trying to work out with the wind shift and the change in wind what the next leg is going to be, because it's probably not going to be the same downwind leg that we saw on the last lap. So yeah, there's just so much to do, and with only 4 people doing it, that takes a lot of brain power.
On board at the moment with Biotherm. The camera pans round, it's Damien Sagan on the helm and Paul Mayer, the skipper, on his knees, just loading up the next winch.
So that's probably a choice that Paul's made, because he's done the route to Rome and he knows the insides of the boat and how to maneuver the boat really, really well. So he's going to be more helpful in the pit, on all the lines, working the trim and helping pass that knowledge on to the rest of the crew before the legs start. And Damien's maybe the one who spent the least time on the boat. So he's going to be more useful, as well as an amazing Olympic sailor. That's where he's going to be the most useful in this import race.
The breeze here in Alicante is softening, and we saw this earlier on today. It's almost as if there are 2 breezes out on the water fighting against each other, and we might be set for a transition. So the crews will need to play the next 5-10 minutes very carefully indeed. On board with Biotherm, the boat chasing them, Guyot Environment, Team Europe, the boat that was in the lead but now back in 4th place. 3rd is Biotherm, the team that we are on board at the moment as we pan round. From the helicopter we can see the race leaders, Team Malizia, with skipper Boris Herman in 1st place and starting to look a bit more comfortable. They were sort of bow to bow with 11th Hour Racing Team, who are in 2nd place, but for the American boat, 2nd is under threat from 3rd right now. Biotherm in 3rd place, starting to exploit that windward position.
Yeah, they've managed to creep up a little bit to windward and make a few gains, and probably the fact that Malizia rolled 11th Hour, that slowed them down with the wind shadow from the big masthead from Malizia. That slowed 11th Hour down, and it's probably taken them a while to get back up to boat speed, and so that's let Biotherm catch them up, and now they're really putting pressure on them now.
Well, just as those distances that came up on the screen there, and in fact just as we pan up on the helicopter shot, in the distance is Team Holcim PRB. They are a long way back. Biotherm at the moment in 3rd place, and this is the view from 11th Hour Racing Team, if indeed you needed any confirmation as to just how tight that battle for 2nd and 3rd is. Let's have a listen in.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Well, that was Francesca Klapčić on board 11th Hour Racing Team. She did the race in the last edition and, of course, got plenty of Olympic experience. And that might explain why she's quite calm right now, because they are surely feeling the pressure from Biotherm behind. The breeze is dying. We are just hearing over the radio that the race management team are looking to shorten the course. So it doesn't look like we're going to be sailing all of lap 2. So Team Malizia in 1st place, coming up to the turn at the top of the course that will take them onto that short downwind leg, and we will expect the IMOCAs really to slow further. But crucially, Sam, that was where we saw the leaders come a cropper last time.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky moment as they bear away. Obviously, they're going to stay on these masthead zeros. There won't be any sail change, so they're going to bear away as low as they can sail without going too slowly, and work out that best angle, the optimum angle to sail downwind VMG towards the next mark, and that'll be painful for them as they see the others close up behind on the reaching leg, and obviously there'll be big pressure on the choice of where to jibe and when.
Yeah, I'm sure Team Milizia, they're about 250 metres in the lead at the moment, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind a couple more metres, because we saw 11th Hour Racing Team, the leaders, whoever they might be on that downwind leg. It was the Americans last time, and it's a lot of pressure being up there as we go on board now with Team Milizia. Right now, trying to hold on to that lead.
They look quite relaxed, actually.
Well, just as you say that, here they go. They're coming now into this mark. So we are about to see a flurry of activity. Boris Herman on the right-hand side of your picture. Will Harris loading the other winch.
And as you can see, they're loading the winch anti-clockwise. Little for the technical people who are watching, on the IMOCAs we have winches that go clockwise and anti-clockwise. To make either a question of load direction or rope leading direction. So you need to know which winch goes which way when you're loading something, when you're under pressure, tired. That can be a bit of a tricky thing to do. Most of them have got arrows on them.
I always thought it was a very good way to catch out the rookies on board, make the new person feel a little bit weak. But the question for Team Milizia, they're around that mark, and the bear away it's minimal. We know that the further away from the breeze you're going to turn this IMOCA in these conditions, especially, the speed is going to drop off. And Team Milizia holding quite a high angle.
Yeah, there's going to be big angles sailed on this downwind leg, so big zigzags and lots of distance to sail on the downwind leg. They're going to be trying to minimise the drag now in the water. Obviously, the foils are great for going fast and creating lift, but now you're going to want your foils up as far out of the water as possible, and the crew weight, as far forward as possible.
Well, Team Milizia are around, and it was 250 metres to their advantage, and that advantage is, well, it's making them feel a little bit better than this team right now. 11th Hour Racing Team rounding in second place. They got work to do.
All boats. The S flag is displayed. The course has been...
Second place, 11th Hour Racing Team.
Mark 2.
Round...
The S flag is
well, just as I was saying, round that final mark.
The finish line is at Mark 2.
Well, there's confirmation then. We knew that something was afoot, but the next mark, the mark after this one, the 11th Hour Racing Team, the finish is waiting for them. It's just the downwind leg. Well, I say just the downwind leg, Sam. I mean, this is actually the hardest leg. It's the leg that we've seen the biggest place changes.
Exactly, and this is probably the trickiest one because they're going so slowly. So, yeah, Milizia have got a small lead, but I don't think they won't be feeling comfortable just yet. They've got to work out when to jibe, whether to jibe more than once, where the wind is, what the traps are, and this race is so close still.
I think an interesting tactical situation that might go here is what Biotherm does in third place, because as we go to the 3D graphics, you can see there's a bit of distance between the leaders, Team Milizia and 11th Hour Racing Team. Biotherm are on the heels of the Americans in second place, but behind Paul Mayer's Biotherm, there's a good gap. So if you were Biotherm here, you've got to be feeling some way confident about third, and you could risk something to see if you can steal second.
It probably depends on how confident they're feeling for their manoeuvres. Obviously, to throw in two jibes is a tricky thing to do, and you've got to furl, unfurl, get those jibes clean, as we saw Holcim PRB got messed one up, and how much they lost. So there's a bit of a risk for that gain, I think.
on board at the moment with Biotherm, and it's a great shot to judge the angle that Paul Meyer and the team are choosing to sail compared with the breeze. Just for a moment there, a little bit higher than 11th Hour Racing Team, and for this position, Biotherm would love to be able to match the speed of the Americans in front, but sail a little bit more to the left.
Exactly, that's the goal, is to try and sail as fast as possible, as low as possible, and optimize those angles. We, on board the IMOCAs, we have data, and the computers generally tell us how to do that, but I think probably Damien Seguin's feeling is probably pretty good for judging those angles. Looks like they're going for the jibe now.
This is going to be a crucial jibe. This could be their last opportunity to attack here. So Biotherm in third place, setting up for a manoeuvre. Second place, it's 11th Hour Racing Team, holding on, and they look set to follow the line of first place Team Milizia, a little way ahead, who have already jibed and now heading off to the finish. 11th Hour Racing Team, I mean, they do get the advantage in second place. I mean, I know we've got computers on board, but nothing beats the eye of that sailor. Have Team Milizia got the ley line right? You can just see the decision that they've made, and you can decide whether you want to copy.
Exactly, and I guess Biotherm, they're thinking about that starboard boat advantage that they will have. Obviously, by jibing early, they're going to have one more jibe to do to come into the line. But if they can come in on starboard and have gained a little bit on 11th hour, then that could help them get past just before the finish.
Just watching Boris Herman, the skipper of Team Milizia, walking around the deck, and Dutch Baron Paul Smith just on board the boat there, a veteran of the race. He did the race back in I think he did the first edition, actually. I think he was on Sailor 2 and they won it, so a little bit of history going on there. But Sam, I think I'm right to say, in IMOCA circles, this boat, Team Milizia, Boris Herman's boat, is known for being a little bit heavy, and you'd think light winds would really be where it suffered. So, you know, you don't want to draw too many conclusions, but it's nice to get a win in the light winds.
I'm sure that will be a good boost for their team morale, especially after a bit of a last-minute change of foils. They had an issue with their foils, and they had to change them just over the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, it will be a good boost for them. And I'm not sure if we can judge boat speed with this race, because it's been such a short course and it's more on manoeuvres and placements. But definitely, I think they'll be happy with this.
Lovely opportunity to see the curl in those foils there, the upward flick of that leeward foil on Team Milizia just coming out, all the foil shapes, little intricacies, little differences as the designers and the sailors have decided to follow different ways. But right now for Team Milizia, they are coming in to this finish line. We have got about 300 meters to go before Team Milizia and their boat Sea Explorer crosses the finish line, taking the top 5 points. They weren't looking the strongest in the early stages of the race, but they found their opportunity to attack and make their way through, and they've been able to hold on to their speed even in the light airs. Now, behind them, interesting to see on the left-hand side of your picture, Biotherm, they have jibed over, and 11th Hour Racing are underneath them. So while we stay with, well, I was going to say while we stay with first boat, but actually it is the battle for second and third. Biotherm have now got that position on the windward hip.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a close battle between these two, and I think they're doing everything they can. Both boats, you can see now, 11th Hour, they've even lifted up one of their rudders. So the windward rudder is out now, and they're really doing everything they can to minimise the drag and grapple that little extra 0.1 of a knot to try and get there before them.
Interesting here to see on board Biotherm. I just saw Paul Meyer just pushing, asking the 3 guests to go onto the front deck. I'm going to say something mildly controversial here. I'm not sure that's allowed. I'm not sure that your guests are allowed in front of the mast. I'm sure that the race management team will be all over that, but just something for me to check later on. The big story, Team Milizia and their performance in this second lap. This is probably a very good story about calm nerves, working hard, waiting for the opportunity. And as you were saying earlier, Sam, it's not just about boat speed, it's manoeuvring and knowing where to be for the breeze.
Yeah, great job by them, and it looks like they've even pulled out a bit since that final jibe. So good work by Boris and his crew.
It's been a long wait, 5 years since the last edition of the Ocean Race, and this, the 14th edition, 50th anniversary, and it's wonderful to see our 5 IMOCAs out in the water. We've had a little bit of everything today, some speeds, 20 knots off the line, even some hint at foiling, but the race here in Alicante in the late hours in the afternoon as the sun come down, the breeze went down with it, but Team Milizia holding their nerve, finding those patches of wind to link together, and they have been able to outmaneuver their rivals. And for Boris, Herman and team, 5 points from this first race here in Alicante.
Nice one, man. Yes. You guys just did much.
Maybe the breeze just for the first foiling moment was good, huh?
Yeah.
We did 18 knots, there was no wind before the race and no wind after the race. Just for half of it. So
and we were catching up with them.
That was perfect. Nice. It was also nice mixing, the leaders were mixing a lot.
Yeah. But it felt good.
Celebrations on the water here for Team Milizia, and that first race, that first points, but more than that, the confidence that comes with it as well, to know that your preparation's good and there's nothing that seems to be amiss in the boat speed, the maneuvers and the communication. Yes, they're going to have to scale this up because this is a short race, but first place in the Alicante import is with Team Milizia. Well, what about the other available points? 11th hour racing team now. They were vulnerable a moment ago with Biotherm on their windward side, but it looked like Paul Meyer and the French team, they jibed too early, and 11th hour racing team were able to hold a better line into the finish. They now have their windward hip clear, and they are about 100 meters before this finish. Remember, this team was in first, they were in last, but they will finish this import race in second place. A good result.
Yeah, I think they'll be happy with that, given their race and also given the fact that they don't have their skipper with them. So they'll be. I'm sure they would have agreed a second place before the start of this import.
And I think in a funny way, it's almost nice when you're not on board the boat that they didn't win. I mean, you know, they got second place, that's really good, but Charlie Enright could be there thinking, well, maybe you'd have won if I'm on board. Everybody gets to feel good about this result, and certainly for this team, it only goes to show that even if they make one mistake, they've got the skill and the technical know-how to wriggle their way through, stay calm, and find their way back into those top positions. So there is the finish line. It was 5 points for Team Milizia in first place, and it's now 4 points for 11th hour racing team. The favourites in this race, and certainly here in Alicante for the import, putting in a strong performance. Our 11th hour racing team clearing the finish line. They'll be feeling good about that performance. Realistically, maybe one decision going wrong, but 99% of the other race sailing nicely. The interesting one for me was what happened behind the American boat, because 11th hour racing team came round the last mark in second place, heading towards the finish. Their only vulnerability really was what was going to happen with Biotherm behind them, and Paul Mayo and Biotherm tried to do something, but 11th hour racing time managed to keep themselves in the right position. Justin Matroon going down. Nice to see Justin Matroon not having to grind anymore on the pedestal.
Yeah, she's allowed out now allowed out to breathe a little bit. And but I think Niall, what you were saying about never giving up, and I think they just showed a great example of the fact that you should never give up, because they were in last place. They came all the way back, what great teamwork and communication to do that. So bravo to them. Yeah, congratulations.
And fairly confident in saying this, that Biotherm here, I mean, they are a long way back from second place. They've lost a lot of distance, but they invested that distance. They tried something. It was a small chance of them overtaking in second place, but fair enough. Now their question is, Guyot Environment Team Europe. We're on board with them now. Annie Lush on the right-hand side, working hard because they're in fourth. Biotherm is in third. The race isn't over.
I know Annie. She's going to have Biotherm in her eyes, and this will be called a trim off. Yeah, Paul and Biotherm, they did what they could. That's fair enough, and it looks to me like the wind is dropping off even more now, and so Biotherm, they've struggled because they've had to maybe luff a little bit more to keep the boat speed on, and so they're ending up having to sail more distance to get to the finish line.
We are close to that finish line, and here you can see the penalty for Biotherm attacking 11th Hour Racing in the way that they did. It was a fair manoeuvre. It might have worked, but the net result of it is that Biotherm now, in light breeze, is having to do 2 more jibes than Guyot Environment Team Europe. So they've already lost a little bit of speed because they are now on the opposite jibe. They have got 1 more jibe to go, and Guyot Environment Team Europe could be doing well here. This race and the action has not yet concluded. Key moment now. Biotherm, Paul Mayer as the skipper. They are coming in. They need to get a clean jibe. It's not going to be port and starboard, I don't think. The distance between the boats means that Biotherm have the room. They are ahead. But how much speed are they going to lose on this jibe?
Yeah, they'll lose a fair amount of speed, and the important thing is how long it takes to get back up to speed after the jibe. And you could just see Paul flicking the boom to try and get the battens through. So now they're going into that jibe, and it's just critical to manage to pop your mainsail battens onto the right side and get the boat speed up again on the new jibe before Guyot have a chance to get their bow in there.
Key moment here. Not only the positioning, but as Sam was saying, also the execution of this manoeuvre for Biotherm. Guyot Environment Team Europe, they have built momentum and it will stay with them. They can carry that all the way to the line. That is one end of the finish line. The rest of the line is out to the left-hand side of your picture. So Biotherm holding on a little bit, because if they jibe too early, their angle into the line is going to be slow. Guyot Environment Team Europe, they've got some distance to make here. I mean, the odds are with Biotherm, but it does need to be a safe manoeuvre.
Yeah, it just needs to be a safe manoeuvre and not have any slip-ups in the furl and the unfurl, or possibly they won't have to furl to jibe this Masthead Zero. I think they should be able to just get it through in one piece.
But even more than that, I mean, they're hunting, they're fishing for an opportunity just to dip the bow and sort of cut the line at 90 degrees, going dead downwind. They're going for it now. The speed is going down, but these boats do have an awful lot of weight, and I think they've judged this right. I think they're going to have enough momentum to get over that line. So Biotherm made the bold call. They tried to do something radical on this downwind leg to try and beat 11th Hour Racing Team. They needed to be smart to make sure that that manoeuvre wouldn't lose them third place, but they've done it. They have just been able to cross that line in third place, taking third points and keeping Guyot Environment Team Europe in fourth. It would be interesting to know what would happen if there was a little bit more of this racetrack left to go, but isn't that always the way when you're the boat like Guyot Environment Team Europe?
I think with the wind decreasing as it is, I think everyone will be happy that the race is done before there's a complete shutdown, and that it's a bit more of a fair race that way.
So it is third for Paul Mayer and Biotherm Racing, and fourth for the French-German team of Guyot Environment Team Europe, co-skippered by Benjamin Dutroux and Robert Stanjek. It's a good performance, and again, this boat here, we saw them right up in the lead. I mean, they were in there with the place changes that we saw as this race went all the way round. Quite an incredible twists and turns that we've seen out in the water here. But as Giro Environment Team Europe cross the line, it is 2 points for them. But there's no getting around the fact there's strong performance for Team Milizia winning this race here in Alicante and the import. On board now with Giro Environment Team Europe, and Sam, that was plenty for this team to feel pleased about.
Yeah, it's a tricky race. I mean, at the beginning, we were all boats were a little bit too far behind the line, but it's dangerous to be too close, because once you're on the foil, you accelerate so fast on a reaching start. I think to the fleet we had an okay start, and then the windward boats started to foil a little bit. I think that's exactly where we have a little handicap. Our boat is a bit heavier, getting out of the water, so we were back in the fleet, and then obviously we made a good ley line on the first downwind, catching up there, going into the second position. Yeah, and then the fleet completely changed. I think the leading boat is last now, so Greece just stopped over to the right side. New pressure filled in from behind, from the left side, so sometimes like that. Yeah.
Good race,
Intro racing.
Good race.
Thank you very much.
Did you enjoy?
Yeah. It's always good to learn.
What do you take away from that then? What happens now?
Well, there is Robert Stanjek, the co-skipper of Giro Environment Team Europe, and all of our teams that have sailed across the line have got plenty to feel positive about. But Sam, there's no getting around what we're seeing here. Team Holcim PRB, they are a long way back.
Yeah, they're a long way back, but I think they'll have things to feel positive about as well. They are the ones that went through or led the race when it was probably the most technical and tough manoeuvre-wise, when the breeze was up. So hopefully they'll bring that back as a positive point, and their teamwork and manoeuvring skills were probably the most impressive of the whole fleet. And they know where they went wrong. It was one tag. The most technical and tough manoeuvre-wise when the breeze was up. So hopefully they'll bring that back as a positive point, and their teamwork and manoeuvring skills were probably the most impressive of the whole fleet. And they know where they went wrong. It was one or led the race when it was probably the most technical and tough manoeuvre-wise when the breeze was up. So hopefully they'll bring that back as a positive point, and their teamwork and manoeuvring skills were probably the most impressive of the whole fleet. And they know where they went wrong. It was one